welcome back to my channel. My name is Jerso and today I am here with my October wrap. So in the month of October I managed to read 6 books. I read 1 thriller, 1 romance, and then 4 fantasy books. And for my star ratings, I'm looking down because I have my notes right here. So for my star ratings, I have 1 3-star, 1 3.5 star, 1 4-star, and I have 3 5-star books. 3 5-star books. I feel like the month of October was one of my best reading months. So if you would like to hear my thoughts and hear about the books that I read this month, keep watching. Grab yourself a mug of tea, of wine, whatever you want. I have some tea here because it's election day and anxiety is beating your girl up today, but still, we move on, you know? We'll survive. I'm just gonna go into the order of star ratings and not the order of when I read these books, because I feel like star ratings makes more sense. My 3-star book of the month was Beautiful Bastard by Christina Lauren. I'm going to put a picture up here because I checked it out from the library and returned it because we don't do library finds over here. So this is about our main character Chloe, who is an MBA student, and she is working at like a large media company, and she's doing her MBA internship through this company, and her boss Bennett is known as like the bastard of the company. Like, he's mean, he's very rude, and she's the only one that can really handle him or stand up to him and stuff like that. And of course, because this is a romance sparks between the two, and we go on from there. So I ended up giving this book 3 stars. I really enjoyed it, and it was exactly what I needed to read at the time that I read it. But like, it took me by surprise because it wasn't what I was expecting. It was less plot and more sex, and like, great, wonderful, but I kind of needed some plot to offset all of the sex, and I just felt like I didn't get a lot of that. So I mean, it was a fun read, yes, but like, I can't give it more than 3 stars. It was just enjoyable. Probably never going to remember it, but I would continue the series only because like I said, it's fun. Another thing that I had a problem with, it felt like there was not a lot of build up to the romance. I mentioned in my weekly vlog that my weekend vlog that I got to like page 32 and these 2 characters were already having sex, and I was shocked because I thought like my copy was missing at least a couple, like 100 pages or something, because I just felt like there was no development between the 2 characters for the readers to get up to that point, if that makes sense. But at the same time, it was just like a smutty read that I needed to read quickly, and I enjoyed it. The next book that I have is A Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. This is about our main character Alex Stern, who is able to see ghosts, and because of this ability she is recruited by a secret society at Yale, and this secret society is called Leith, and it is the 9th house of a 8-house secret society type of thing. So there are 8 houses of the Veil, and these 8 houses have they can do a certain amount of magic, and they each have their own specialty. And the Leith house is the 9th house of the Veil, and they are there to kind of protect or keep a lookout on the other 8 houses so that they're not abusing their magic and their power. So Alex goes to Yale and she's a high school dropout, so she's really struggling. And then a girl ends up being murdered, and then Alex's mentor goes missing, and she thinks these two things are connected. So she starts doing her own little investigation about who killed this girl and where her mentor went. So I ended up giving this book 3.5 stars. I expected to love it a lot more than I did, so I was a little disappointed. My main issue with this book was there was a lot of moving parts to keep track of, and I kept getting confused almost. Like, there was the secret societies, and all the secret societies had their own little ritual and thing that they did. So, and it played a big part of the book, in the book, so I had to keep track of that. And then there was Alex solving this murder of the murdered girl, and that somehow included the secret societies. So you had to keep track of that murder. And then you also had the moving part of her mentor going missing and her having to figure that out. And then you had Alex, who was dealing with her own personal shit and like her backstory, and that's a whole story in itself. And somehow all of these stories, or all of these moving parts, came together, but keeping track of it during a, let's see, 460 page book was really hard for me. I would get immersed into a certain aspect of the story and then be sucked out of it and kind of introduced to another aspect, and then I would try to keep that in my mind and put it together at the end, and I just had a really difficult time with that. I will say that I absolutely loved Alex as a main character. I felt like she was badass. Her snarkiness, her sarcasm was very much something that I enjoyed. So she made this really enjoyable to read, and I liked it enough to want to continue with the second book in the series whenever it comes out. Keep in mind, this has trigger warnings for sexual assault, drug use, overdose, and ritualistic self-harm. So just so you're aware if you want to pick this up. So the next book I have is From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This book is about our young maiden Poppy, who needs to be protected until she's able to participate in her ascension to godhood, I think. So she can't be touched, she can't be looked at. She's basically veiled and locked in a kingdom to be protected. She ends up falling in love with her new guard, Hawk, and we have that romance sparking in. And because this is, I don't think I said it, but this is a fantasy romance, so that's the romance part. But then we also have this political upheaval that's, I wouldn't say in the background of the romance. I think it's very equally shared with the romance. So this kingdom that Poppy is in is basically surrounded by a blood forest, and within this forest we have creatures from the previous kingdom who was fought out by the current kingdom, and there was this huge war. I ended up giving this book 4 stars. I really liked it. The beginning was kind of, the beginning and like the middle-ish was kind of slow for me. I felt like it dragged, and the world building was very hard. Like, it was hard to grasp exactly how this world operated. It was it took me a while to understand like who were the rulers, what role each of these people played in it, in this kingdom, and the war and everything like that. So that took a little while, so I didn't really enjoy the world building, and the romance at first seemed a little insta-lovey, so I didn't really like that as much either. But once the characters started having dialogue, like actual dialogues with each other instead of I see him, he's cute, I like him, I really liked their dialogue. I felt like they were both sassy. You could feel the angst and just the love, and I absolutely adored these two characters. They were amazing. Hawk, the love interest, he kept me on my toes. At first I loved him, and then I hated him, and then I loved him again, and by the end I just needed to order the second book, which I immediately did after I finished this. So like I mentioned, the beginning and the middle of the book kind of dragged, but honestly the last 80 to 100 pages I flew through it. I would not sleep until I finished this book, and it was so good. So good. Don't go into this book expecting such a high fantasy, high stakes book, because this, in my opinion, certainly isn't it. It's more lighthearted fantasy with a lot of romance, which I loved. Again, this book does have some content warnings for physical abuse and death of a parent, so the next book that I have was one of my favorites of the month. I think we're moving into my 5-star ratings now, but this one was one of my favorites for the month. It is no other than My Lovely Wife by Samantha Downing, and I absolutely loved this book. So this book is about a married suburban couple who basically like to kill women. And that's all I'm gonna say, because that's all you need to know before going into this book, because the journey that it takes you on is just, I ate it up. I absolutely loved and hated the characters. It's like a Dexter type situation. At least I felt like it was like a Dexter type situation where like you didn't want them to get caught, but at the same time they're out here killing people, so why shouldn't they get caught? But I truly would recommend this thriller to everyone. I absolutely loved it and gave it 5 out of 5 stars. The next 5-star book that I have is Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. This is a fantasy. It follows a trans boy named Yadriel who wants to prove to his family that he is a brujo. Within this world, we have brujos and brujas. So brujos are the males who are responsible for dealing with the ghosts and releasing spirits into their afterlife, while the brujas are responsible for healing. So Yadriel wants to be seen as a true brujo, but his family is having a hard time accepting that he is a brujo instead of a bruja because he is trans. So we do have LGBTQ rep in here, which we love to see. So to prove them wrong, Yadriel and his cousin, I forgot her name, decide to perform his brujo ceremony by himself, and he wants to summon up the ghost of his cousin, but he ends up summoning the wrong ghost, and he awakens Julian, the neighborhood bad boy, and Julian basically refuses to go back to the dead until he figures out what really happened to him, why he was murdered, because he really doesn't know. This was clearly 5 out of 5 stars. I absolutely adored the family relationship in this book. Although Yadriel's family isn't very accepting, or I won't say they're not accepting, they're having a hard time accepting Yadriel for who he is, but you can see that they're actively trying to accept him for who he is. And like, just it's such a feel-good book. And of course there is a romance in here, and the romance just, I started tearing up towards the end because I just felt like it was so cute and just wholesome, and the way they talked about being trans and being accepted and things like that, like I truly felt like it was done in such a great way. The ending, like I started tearing up a little bit, and I don't cry during books, but this made me feel a little something in my eye, you know, like it was just wonderful. I loved. So the last book that I ended up reading in the month of October is also another favorite of mine. It was great, and it is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. It is a dual timeline, partially dual perspective book, and we follow our main character named Addie LaRue. Now, Addie is trying to escape an arranged marriage, so she makes a deal with the darkness in, I think it was 1714 France or something, so that she could live and be free, and the darkness grants her immortality, but in exchange for her immortality, she is easily forgotten. She can't be remembered, and she can't really leave her mark on the world at all. So if she writes something, it disappears. If she breaks something, it becomes whole again. People remember her when they're having face-to-face conversation, but as soon as they turn their backs or close the door or anything, she will be forgotten. We follow her over her hundreds of years, I think like around 300 years, and her how she's been living and things like that. And then one day she meets a guy at the bookstore named Henry, who can remember her, who like remembers her name the next day, and who she can say her name to, because I forgot to mention another part of this deal is that she cannot say her name or write her name. So when she's able to say her name to this guy, she's excited. Not to say, she is excited. We get a story about Addie. So we basically get to follow Addie through this journey that is her invisible life, I guess. Her 300-year journey. So, of course, I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. I was not expecting this book to be what it was. I was hearing things of like a love story with the devil, or just like a love story in general, and I would not say it's a love story. Yes, there are some elements of romance in it, but you get more, you're really just focused on Addie and just the sadness of her life, and how she finds hope in the smallest things, and how she finds ways throughout this deal that she made to really leave her mark on this world, whether it be art or music or anything that she can. And it's so beautifully written. This book, I'm not one that's like a stickler for writing styles, and like I don't comment on like the writing of books a lot because I can usually look past it. But when something catches my eye this much, I have to talk about it. The writing was absolutely beautiful. I could really feel the emotion. It felt like every word was picked perfectly to elicit emotion out of you. It was so wonderful. By the end of this, I was a bawling mess. The ending of this hit me really hard. Like, it was sad throughout, and I was just like, oh, this is kind of depressing, but like at the same time, like you couldn't put it down because it was just so beautifully written, and her story was just so gripping. And by that, like, there are no words to describe how this book made me feel. Like, it made me feel sad, but it made me feel hopeful, but it made me feel lucky in a way that I get to be remembered, that I get to leave my mark. Like, I just felt so many things while reading this, and it hit me so hard, and it was just so beautiful. And I'm gonna stop repeating myself now, but this book 100% would not recommend it for everyone. It's not a fast-paced book. It's not even medium paced, really. It's a very slow, whimsical book, so you really have to take your time reading it in some parts. But at the same time, like, if you're not a fan of traveling books and you're not a fan of life stories, no matter how hard-hitting they are, then you probably wouldn't like this book. So that is it for this video. Those are the 6 books that I read in the month of October. I really enjoyed everything that I did read, and I hope that you guys, you know, pick up some of these books as well. Leave a comment down below of the books that sound interesting to you, or a book that you would like to read in the month of November. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you did enjoy this video, and I'll see you guys next Thursday with another video. Bye!